Gladiator opens with a high school youngster named Tommy Riley who, for some reason, must move in with his father to begin a new life. However, their new residence is in a slum where various gangs operate freely. When Tommy arrives at his new school, a group of youngsters in the area attempt to harass him. And unfortunately, he is in the same class as three of the people who had bullied him on the way. Tommy, a transfer student, does not want to make problems with delinquent kids. So he simply obliged when the three people instructed him to change seats 3 times. He began to lose patience when they urged him to change seats for the 4th time. He remained where he was despite being warned to move, which disturbed them. Fortunately, when the fight appeared to break out, the instructor entered the classroom and urged the children to sit down. The bullies agreed, even though they threatened Tommy that they would resolve their differences with him during recess. Sure enough, the bullies approached Tommy at recess and even brought their pals with them. But once again, he is saved when another gang's members intervene. Gang rivalry exists in the school, and they frequently fight there, as shown today, when the 2 gang leaders face off in front of other pupils. One of them didn't hesitate to employ sharp weapons during the battle. The duel had to end early since the teachers were aware of it, and there was no winner. As if the troubles at school weren't enough, Tommy also had to deal with bill collectors when he went home. Indeed, he and his father had to relocate since his father had accrued a significant gambling debt following the death of his mother. Because of his father's problems, Tommy now has to deal with 2 debt collectors who arrive at his house armed with firearms. Fortunately, they did not cause him any harm. They just intimidated him to make his father pay off his debt, which had been outstanding for 2 weeks. Tommy was awakened later that night when his father returned. His father was truly kind to him, as seen by his question regarding his first day at his new school. Tommy chooses to lie and claim that everything is going smoothly, but Tommy's father thought otherwise. He suspected Tommy was hiding something from him. Tommy was forced to inform him about the presence of 2 debt collectors at the house this afternoon, which made his father unhappy. His father recognized he had made a mistake that had devastated their lives, so he told Tommy that he would make things right. He'd obtained a new work in another well-paying city, allowing him to pay off his obligations and enhance their finances. Tommy, on the other hand, was content to live alone for a while because he was an adult. To help relieve his father's burden, he even opted to work as a dishwasher at a neighborhood diner owned by his classmates' parents. But one night, the goons from his school came into the cafe and resolved to settle their unfinished business as soon as they saw Tommy working there. Tommy tried to put up with their provocation at first, but he couldn't take it anymore after they shoved him down and laughed at him with foolish expressions. He instantly jumped up and beat 2 of them. However, just as he was ready to beat the 3rd one, an unknown old man appeared and interrupted them. The elderly man turned out to be a local boxing promoter named Jack. He claims to enjoy Tommy's fighting style and is interested in giving him a chance to compete in an illegal underground boxing contest. He offered to pay Tommy $600, which he quickly declined. Tommy requested a fee of $1,250. If Jack did not want to pay less, he could find someone else who would. After lengthy negotiations, Jack ultimately agrees to his requests. They shook hands in the presence of Dawn, the diner owner's daughter. The next night, Tommy goes to the illegal combat location, where Jack introduces him to Noah, the man who will train him and look after all of his requirements while he is there. Noah's first bit of advice was that the upcoming match would be like war. He doesn't have to worry about fairness in the ring since no one will care. Furthermore, Tommy will face Black Death, a warrior who enjoys playing dirty. Tommy unexpectedly encounters Romano, a classmate who is astonished to learn that he must fight the Black Death in his first combat. He advised Tommy to be careful with his right hand when fighting his opponent later, and so following Romano's counsel, he entered the ring. All of the spectators were betting on Black Death's triumph, and they cheered as he entered the arena. What Noah said turned out to be correct. Since the contest began, Black Death has acted dirty by throwing an elbow at Tommy, causing his temples to bleed. And it didn't stop there. He next landed a hard blow on Tommy's groin. Even if the Black Death fought dirty, the referee ignored it. After all, it was all permissible in this boxing arena. However, after a while of fighting, the Black Death grew tired, allowing Tommy to launch a volley of attacks that knocked him down. Finally, he won his first bout, leaving fans, bettors, and investors stunned by what they saw. But when Tommy raised his hands in victory, they all cheered with delight. Tommy was invited the next day to meet with Jack's supervisor, Mr. Horn, to make the payment. But Horn evidently enjoyed how he fought last night, so he invited Tommy to come back and fight for him. Tommy rejected the offer since he just wanted $1,250, no more no less. As the day progresses, he crosses paths with Dawn, who cannot hide her disappointment at Tommy's decision to join an unlawful combatant. She eventually sighed a sigh of relief after learning that he had only battled once in the ring. He had absolutely no desire to become a full-time fighter. But everything changed when Jack requested Tommy to meet with Horn again in the afternoon. After some small conversation, Horn disclosed that the two debt collectors who had visited Tommy's residence were his men. And to make matters worse, his father just resumed gambling and reduced his debt to $15,000. But Horn has a method that will allow him to quickly pay his father's debt. Tommy just needed to be his warrior in a few matches. As one might assume, Tommy accepted the offer to repay his father's debt. While heading home from Horn's, Tommy notices his schoolmate, Lincoln, being ganged up on by gang members. He chooses to assist him, but because they are outnumbered, they must flee from the gang members who continue to pursue them. After fleeing their pursuit, Tommy and Lincoln talk, and it is revealed that Lincoln, despite his young age, already has a wife and children. That's why, like Tommy, he chose to support his family by fighting in illegal boxing. Later that night, Tommy opted to watch Lincoln's fight, in which his new friend appeared to be overpowered by his larger opponent. But in the end, he was able to turn things around swiftly and win the fight. Tommy could no longer conceal his interest about Horn. So after watching Lincoln's fight, he visits Noah's house and inquires about Horn's background. Horn is a former boxer who won the World Heavyweight title. What's even more incredible is that he's only lost once in his boxing career. In a rematch, he instantly avenged the loss by injuring his opponent for the rest of his life. However, even the superb fighter had to retire due to a leg injury. He had several surgery on his leg, but by the time it recovered, his golden period had passed. He was too old to compete in the ring again, so he decided to become a boxing promoter, a career that would pay him well without the risk of damage. Dawn had visited Tommy's place when he was training many days earlier. She was concerned because he hadn't been to school lately. He finally confessed his family's issues and how they compelled him to return to the illegal boxing arena. Fortunately, she understood his condition, and they grew close. Tommy's life is better than ever since he became an illegal boxer. Dawn always accompanied him on his adventures, and they develop a romantic bond. In addition, he becomes buddies with Romano and Lincoln, with whom he practices and has fun on a daily basis. However, tragedy struck Romano during a match one night. That night, he faced Shortcut, a fighter who was inferior to him. It was clear from the way Romano dominated their combat. But when the fight reached the fifth round, Shortcut decided to be sneaky by dropping a mystery liquid on his gloves. When the fight resumed, Shortcut locked Romano's neck, forcing him to ingest whatever had dripped on his glove, and the moment he let go of the clutch, Romano's vision blurred, rendering him unable to fight properly. Shortcut took full advantage of the chance, mercilessly hitting him. Even though he was bleeding, Romano refused to stop, as if he relished torturing his opponent. Tommy observed everything from the edge of the ring, and he could no longer endure to see the agony within. So, as the referee appeared to have no intention of halting the battle, he dashed to the bell and pressed it, forcing the contest to cease at that point. But at this point, Romano was already asleep in the ring's corner. Tommy received a call from his father, who appeared to be unconcerned about the situation. He just asked how Tommy was doing and explained that he had to postpone his return due to unfinished business. Tommy went to see Romano in the hospital the next day, but he found him still unconscious. Doctors proclaimed him brain dead. Tommy, of course, couldn't let the person who treated Romano that way go unpunished. And the opportunity for vengeance finally came when he faced Shortcut in the ring. Shortcut attempts another dirty trick on Tommy. However, Tommy had already spotted how he dropped liquid on his gloves during his fight with Romano. Thus, his ingenuity did not work this time. Tommy even chooses to have a dirty fight with Shortcut, slapping him in the groin and making him moan in pain before delivering a flurry of blows. Tommy ultimately won the battle in the first round. With Romano gone, Tommy's sole remaining close friend is Lincoln. However, Lincoln experienced an incident while training. His body weakened abruptly, and he collapsed for whatever reason. And it turns out that the reason was that he was hit in the head so severely the week before that he is now exhibiting symptoms of brain damage. That is why he was instructed to take a 60-day vacation from boxing. Otherwise, he could sustain lifelong brain damage. But Horn had other plans for Lincoln. Later that night, Tommy was perplexed to discover that the opponent he was meant to face was fighting with another boxer. So he went to Horn and asked what had transpired. And this is when Horn disclosed his strategy. It turns out that he wants Tommy to fight Lincoln, and the latter agrees. Of course, this made Tommy angry with Lincoln. Tommy's current condition prevented him from fighting, and he was especially frightened of losing another comrade. But no matter what Tommy says, Lincoln is determined to attack him. After all, this was an excellent opportunity for Lincoln to demonstrate his abilities to Horn, who had promised to promote him to the professional ranks if he won the fight. Tommy goes to Horn to encourage him to call off his confrontation with Lincoln, after realizing he will not be able to influence Lincoln's thinking. But his attempts were in vain. Day after day passed until it was time for Lincoln and Tommy to battle. This is perhaps the biggest battle in illegal underground boxing, and Dawn should expect to see her boyfriend in it. Tommy, on the other hand, was less excited than Lincoln. As soon as the first round bell rung, Lincoln began to attack Tommy. On the other hand, he plays passively. He never attacked Lincoln, even when Lincoln knocked him down. His actions undoubtedly made Lincoln angry. If the game continues like this, the Horn will undoubtedly not pay them. Horn didn't like watching boring games. The audience agreed with him. As a result, during halftime in the second round, Horn threatened Tommy by holding Dawn, stating he could do whatever he wanted to her if Tommy didn't fight sincerely. But whatever the motive, Tommy could not have hit Lincoln because a single blow to the head could be fatal. So, to the delight of Horn and the audience, he decided to punch Lincoln in the body throughout the battle. He tries to urge Lincoln to end the meaningless struggle, claiming that even if one of them dies, Horn will not care. He only worried about money. However, Lincoln responded to every of his statements by pounding his skull. At this point, Tommy had given up on persuading Lincoln. If he wants to acquire money from Horn, Tommy tells him to use all of his might to hit him. To his surprise, Lincoln discovered Tommy's comments were true. This is just inaccurate. They should not have had this quarrel. As a result, he elected to end the battle without finishing it, much to the disgust of the audience. Horn was disappointed, but more than anything, he was furious, so he stepped into the ring and told Lincoln to end the battle. However, Lincoln refused his directions. He declared he would no longer work for him. This decision appeared to cause Horn to lose control of himself. He whacked Lincoln in the head without saying anything, sending him flying out of the ring. Tommy presumably thought Horn had gone too far by this point. He must be taught a lesson in order to recognize how terrible his actions were. As a result, Tommy stepped into the ring and challenged him to a duel right here in this location. If Tommy wins, Horn must repay his father's debt. If he wins, Tommy will labor for him indefinitely. Horn was willing to accept that arrangement, but on one condition: they had to fight sans gloves. Horn's enormous experience as a former boxing champion offers him an advantage, as evidenced by his mocking and humiliation of Tommy early in the bout. However, his arrogance was the source of his downfall. Tommy may be young, but he is intelligent. He quickly learned how to fight Horn and eventually defeated him. First, Tommy purposefully let Horn hit his head, breaking one of Horn's fingers. Then he provoked Horn's wrath, exactly as he had done to Tommy at the outset of the match. Tommy learned that Horn's weakness was rage after observing his reaction. But that wasn't enough to defeat him. Tommy pretended his right arm was damaged to take Horn off guard. Only when the timing was right did he smack Horn in the face, followed by another 13 punches that knocked him out. Tommy and his father are now debt-free after Horn's death. Tommy, Lincoln, and Dawn are seen enjoying their triumph at the end of the film. The movie concludes, "This film teaches us the importance of self-control in order to avoid wasting money on frivolous activities like gambling. Because that object is addictive, and if we are unlucky, it may need us to borrow money from someone, and if we couldn't pay, they may harm us or our family."